Jake Morrison walked through the wide halls of Kepler Station's Galactic University, still amazed by what he saw every day. Alien students moved past him in groups, talking in languages that sounded like music, clicks, or strange humming sounds. Some floated in the air, others walked on 6 legs, and a few rolled along like living boulders. Jake had been here for 3 months now, but he still felt like he was living in a dream. The human was one of only 3 from Earth studying at the most famous school in the galaxy. The human exchange program was new, and most aliens still did not know what to think about his species. Jake could feel their eyes on him as he passed by. Some looked curious, others seemed worried, and a few quickly looked away when he smiled at them. Jake entered his advanced xenobiology classroom and took his usual seat in the 3rd row. The room was built to hold many different types of beings, with seats that could change shape, special air mixers for different breathing needs, and floors that could become soft or hard depending on what students needed. His regular classmates were already there. Zixtel sat in the back corner as far from everyone else as possible. The Vrek student looked like a giant praying mantis mixed with a person, standing about 7 feet tall with thin arms and legs. His skin was hard and green like armor, and it made soft clicking sounds when he moved. Zixtel was always nervous, and his big black eyes darted around the room constantly, watching for danger that never came. Near the front sat Mora, a sylphin who looked like she was made of living crystal. Her body was clear with soft blue and purple colors flowing through it like slow lightning. She was beautiful to watch, but Jake had learned that when sylphin got scared or upset, their bodies became almost invisible. Mora was quiet and spoke by making musical sounds that the translation devices turned into words. Gleep took up 2 seats in the middle row, his green blob-like body spreading out comfortably. The Blobarian could change his shape however he wanted, and right now he had grown 4 arm-like parts that were taking notes, checking his tablet, organizing his supplies, and waving hello to Jake all at the same time. Gleep was probably the friendliest student in class, always happy and eager to learn new things. Other students filled the remaining seats. There was Korth, a rock-like being from a high-gravity world who spoke in a voice like rolling thunder. Twin sisters Pip and Pop from the gas giant Nephron floated in special suits filled with their home atmosphere. A cat-like feliner named Whiskers kept grooming herself with a long purple tongue. The diversity still amazed Jake every day. Dr. Veltar entered the classroom and all conversation stopped. The Zentarian professor was impressive and a little scary, standing 8 feet tall with dark red skin covered in small scales. 4 golden eyes sat on his large head, and each eye could move on its own, letting him watch his entire class at once. He wore the long blue robes that marked him as a senior faculty member. "Good morning, students," Dr. Veltar said, his voice deep and formal. "I trust you have all completed your reading assignments on predator adaptation in extreme environments." Several students nodded, while others looked down at their desks with guilty expressions. Jake had done the reading and found it interesting, though most of the extreme environments described in the textbook seemed pretty normal compared to Earth. Today we will examine the relationship between predator and prey species in hostile ecosystems. The professor continued, walking between the rows of seats. You will observe how evolution shapes behavior, hunting strategies, and survival instincts when life exists in constant danger. Zixtel's armor plates began clicking together softly, which Jake had learned meant the Vrex was getting anxious. Mora's crystalline body dimmed slightly, and even cheerful Gleep seemed to shrink down in his seat. Furthermore, Dr. Veltar announced, today's lesson will feature a live specimen for direct observation and study. The room went completely quiet. Jake looked around and saw that every alien student had gone very still. Even their breathing seemed to stop. "Professor," Whiskers spoke up, her cat-like ears flat against her head. "When you say live specimen, do you mean ... "I mean exactly that," Dr. Veltar replied with what might have been a smile on his scaled face. "The university has acquired a Rigel stalker for educational purposes. It arrived this morning and is currently being prepared for safe observation." Jake had never heard of a Rigel stalker, but clearly everyone else had. Zixtal's clicking became rapid and loud. Mora turned almost completely transparent. Gleep actually split into two smaller blobs before pulling himself back together. Several students made worried sounds in their various languages. "Sir," Korth rumbled in his deep stone voice, "are you certain this is wise? Rigel stalkers are classified as extremely dangerous." "Which is precisely why we will study one," the professor answered. "How can you understand predation without observing? A true predator? Fear of a subject does not excuse ignorance of it." Jake raised his hand. "Professor, I'm not familiar with Rigel stalkers. Could you tell us about them?" Every eye in the room turned to look at Jake. The other students seemed shocked that he would ask about something so terrifying. Dr. Valtar's four eyes focused on the human with interest. "Ah, yes, Mr. Morrison, your species would not have encountered them yet. Rigel stalkers are apex predators from the Rigel system, specifically from Rigel 7, a world considered uninhabitable by most civilized species. They are approximately 2 meters in length, possess 6 limbs ending in razor-sharp claws, have multiple rows of teeth designed for tearing flesh, and hunt using a combination of speed, intelligence, and pack tactics." "Sounds interesting," Jake said, making a note in his tablet. The other students stared at him like he had lost his mind. Interesting was not the word they would use to describe a creature that regularly appeared in their species horror entertainment. "They are capable of running at speeds up to 60 kilometers per hour. Dr. Veltar continued, can leap distances of 15 meters, and their claws can cut through most standard materials. Their natural habitat includes active volcanoes, toxic swamps, and radiation fields that would kill most life forms within minutes." "Like Australia," Jake muttered to himself, thinking of some of the wildlife documentaries he had watched back home. "I beg your pardon?" the professor asked. "Oh, nothing, sir. Just taking notes." Dr. Veltar looked at Jake for a long moment with all four eyes. There was something in that look that Jake could not quite understand. It was like the professor was seeing him differently than before. "The specimen will arrive within the hour," Dr. Veltar announced to the class. "We will observe its behavior, study its hunting adaptations, and analyze how it has evolved to survive in one of the galaxy's most hostile environments. This is a rare opportunity to see evolution's greatest success story in action." "Greatest success story," Pip whispered to her sister Pop in their musical language. "More like greatest nightmare," Pop whispered back. Jake looked around the classroom again. Every single alien student looked terrified. Some were already packing up their belongings, probably planning to skip class. Others sat frozen in their seats like they were too scared to move. A few were making what sounded like prayers in their native languages, but Jake felt nothing except curiosity. He wondered what made this Rigel stalker so scary to everyone else. From the description, it sounded like a big lizard with claws. Earth had plenty of those. Crocodiles were basically the same thing, and people went swimming in waters where crocodiles lived all the time. Maybe the other students had never seen a real predator before. Maybe their worlds were safe and peaceful without the kind of dangerous animals that made Earth so exciting. Jake almost felt sorry for them. Growing up without any real adventure or risk in their lives, he had no idea that within the next hour, he was going to show his classmates exactly what it meant to come from a death world. The wait felt like forever. Jake watched his classmates become more nervous with each passing minute. Zixtal had moved his chair even further back and was now pressed against the wall, his armor plates clicking in a fast rhythm that sounded like rain on a metal roof. Mora had become so transparent that Jake could barely see her outline. Only the soft musical sounds she made when breathing told him she was still there. Gleep had changed from his normal, happy green color to a worried yellow, and he kept splitting into smaller pieces before pulling himself back together. The Blobarian was clearly fighting his natural instinct to escape by flowing under the door. Even confident Korth had pulled his rocky limbs closer to his body, making himself look like a large boulder that was trying to hide. Maybe the transport got delayed, Whiskers said hopefully, her tail twitching with nervous energy. Sometimes shipments from the Rigel system take longer because of the radiation storms. Or maybe it escaped during transport, Pip suggested, which made her sister Pop make a sound like a broken flute. Do not say such things, Pop replied quickly. The universe might be listening. Dr. Veltar stood at the front of the classroom, checking his tablet and looking perfectly calm. Jake wondered if the professor was nervous too, or if Centaurians just did not show fear the same way other species did. It was hard to tell with 4 eyes that could all look in different directions. Professor, Zixtel called out in his clicking voice, perhaps we could study the Rigel stalker through recorded footage instead. I am sure the university has excellent videos that would be just as educational. Recorded footage cannot teach you about pheromone signatures, movement patterns, or hunting behavior, Dr. Veltar replied without looking up from his tablet. Direct observation is the foundation of true scientific understanding. Jake made a note about pheromones. He had read that many alien species could smell emotions like fear, anger, or excitement. Humans had lost most of that ability somewhere in their evolution, which probably explained why he felt so relaxed while everyone else was panicking. He could not smell their terror, so it did not affect him. A soft chime sounded, and the classroom door slid open. 2 security guards in full armor walked in first, carrying weapons that hummed with energy. Behind them came a team of technicians pushing a large container on a floating platform. The container was made of transparent aluminum and steel, about the size of a small room, with warning labels in 12 different languages, covering every surface. Jake could not read most of the alien writing, but the pictures were clear enough. Images of claws, teeth, radiation symbols, and what looked like stick figures running away were painted in bright red across the container walls. At the bottom, in letters that seemed to glow, was written Extreme Danger, Rigel Stalker, Do Not Approach. The technicians positioned the container in the center of the classroom and began setting up additional safety equipment. Force field generators surrounded the container, creating multiple layers of energy barriers. Motion sensors and emergency alarms were placed around the room. One technician started spraying something that smelled like cleaning solution, but probably blocked scent trails. All safety protocols are now active, announced the lead technician, a short alien with blue skin and too many arms. The specimen is contained within triple redundant force fields. Emergency lockdown can be activated within 0.3 seconds. Security response time is 45 seconds. All students must remain seated and avoid sudden movements. Jake looked around. The classroom, half the students were gone. At some point during the setup, Whiskers, the twin sisters, and several others had quietly left. Jake had not noticed them go because he was watching the technicians work. The remaining students sat, frozen in their chairs like statues. Initiating specimen transfer, the technician announced. A section of the container wall became transparent, and Jake got his first look at a Rigel stalker. The creature was sleeping, curled up in the corner of its habitat like a large cat. It was definitely impressive, about 6 feet long from nose to tail, with dark scales that seemed to absorb light. Its body was sleek and muscular, built for speed and power. 6 legs were tucked under its body, each ending in claws that looked sharp enough to cut metal. It is smaller than I expected, Korth rumbled quietly. Size is not everything, Dr. Veltar replied. Observe the muscle development in the hind legs. Notice how the claws curve for maximum grip. See the way its head is shaped for hydrodynamic efficiency. Jake made notes and sketches. The creature really did look like a cross between a monitor lizard and a praying mantis, just like the professor had described. Its head was narrow and pointed, with a mouth that looked like it could open very wide. Even sleeping, it had an alert quality, like it was only resting and could wake up instantly. Is it really asleep? Mora asked in her musical voice, speaking so quietly that the translation device barely picked it up. Rigel stalkers do not truly sleep as we understand it, Dr. Veltar explained. They enter a state of reduced activity but remain aware of their surroundings. In the wild, they must always be ready to hunt or flee from larger predators. Larger predators? Zixtal's voice cracked. There are things bigger than this on Rigel 7? Oh yes, the stalker is actually considered a medium-sized species on its homeworld. Rigel 7 is home to some of the most dangerous life forms in known space. Jake looked at his classmates and saw pure horror on their faces. To them, this sleeping creature was the stuff of nightmares, and the professor was telling them it was just a medium-sized animal from a world full of even worse things, but to Jake, it looked like any large predator he might see at a zoo back home. Dangerous, yes, but not terrifying. It reminded him of the alligators he had seen in Florida, or the big cats at wildlife parks. Impressive and worthy of respect, but not monsters. The creature stirred slightly, and every alien in the room stopped breathing. One of its eyes opened, a bright yellow orb that seemed to glow in the artificial light. The eye moved slowly, scanning the room and the students watching it. When its gaze passed over Jake, he felt like it was looking right through him, measuring him. Deciding if he was threat or prey, Jake looked back calmly, the way his grandfather had taught him to look at aggressive animals. No fear, no challenge, just calm observation. The creature's eye lingered on him for a moment longer than it had on the others, then closed again. Remarkable, Dr. Veltar said softly. It showed interest in the human student. Most species trigger immediate predator assessment when a stalker notices them. What does that mean? Gleep asked, his yellow color shifting to orange with worry. It means the creature is trying to decide if you are food, competition, or a threat. The fact that it looked at Mr. Morrison without showing aggressive behavior is quite unusual. Jake shrugged. Maybe it could tell I'm not scared of it. The professor's 4 eyes all focused on Jake with intense interest. You are not frightened by the Rigel stalker? Not really, Jake admitted. I mean, I can see it's dangerous, but it's locked up safely. It's like watching a lion at the zoo. A lion? Dr. Veltar asked. Big cat from Earth, about the same size as this guy, but probably meaner. Lions hunt in groups and can bring down animals much larger than themselves. The remaining students stared at Jake like he had just claimed he could fly. The idea that Earth had creatures similar to a Rigel stalker was beyond their understanding. Suddenly, the lights in the classroom flickered. Everyone looked up nervously as the illumination dimmed for a moment before returning to normal. The force field generators hummed louder and warning lights began blinking yellow around the container. Minor power fluctuation, one of the technicians announced. All systems remain stable. But Jake noticed something the others missed. When the lights had flickered, the Rigel stalker's eyes had opened again, both of them this time. And now it was awake, watching everything around it with the focused attention of a hunter that had just noticed weakness in its cage. The Rigel stalker was definitely awake now. Jake watched as the creature slowly unfolded itself from its sleeping position, moving with the careful grace of a born hunter. Its 6 legs extended one at a time, claws scraping softly against the metal floor of the container. The sound was barely audible, but every alien student in the room heard it and flinched. Beautiful specimen, Dr. Veltar said, apparently unaware of how terrified his students had become. Notice how it tests each surface before putting its full weight down. This is an adaptation for hunting on unstable terrain like lava flows and crystal formations. The creature stood up to its full height, and Jake could see why it scared everyone so much. Standing, the Rigel stalker looked like pure predator. Its body was lean and muscular, designed for explosive speed. The claws on its feet looked like curved knives, and its head moved in small, quick jerks as it scanned its surroundings. Its yellow eyes missed nothing. Professor, Zixtal whispered from the back of the room, perhaps we have observed enough for today? Nonsense, Dr. Veltar replied. We have barely begun our study. Watch how it uses its secondary arms to test the air for chemical signatures. The stalker raised its 2 smaller front limbs and moved them slowly through the air. Jake realized. It was smelling them, trying to figure out what was outside its cage. The creature's head turned toward the students, and Jake could almost see it thinking, categorizing each alien by scent and threat level, Then the lights flickered again. This time they stayed dim for several seconds before coming back to full brightness. The force field generators around the container made a sound like static, and several warning lights changed from yellow to orange. "Technical difficulties," one of the technicians said, but his voice sounded worried. "Running diagnostic now." The Rigel stalker had noticed the change immediately. It moved to the wall of its container and pressed one clawed hand against the transparent aluminum. Where its claw touched, Jake could see tiny sparks of electricity from the force field system. "It is testing the barriers," Dr. Veltar observed with scientific fascination. "Remarkable intelligence. It recognizes that the power fluctuation indicates weakness in its containment. Should we not move the creature back to a more secure location?" Mora asked, her musical voice high with fear. "The containment is still fully functional," the lead technician replied, but he was typing rapidly on his control pad. "Multiple redundant systems ensure complete safety." The stalker moved along the wall of its container, touching different spots with its claws. Each touch created more sparks. It was definitely testing the force field, looking for weak points like a prisoner checking the bars of its cell. Gleep had turned completely orange now, which Jake had learned meant a blowbarium. Was very frightened. "It acts like it has done this before," Gleep said quietly. "Rigel stalkers are escape artists," Dr. Veltar explained. "In the wild, they often become trapped in cave systems or lava tubes. Evolution has given them an instinct to immediately test any barrier for weaknesses." The creature completed its circuit of the container and returned to the center. For a moment it stood perfectly still, and Jake thought it might settle down again. Then the lights flickered a third time, and this time they heard a loud pop from somewhere in the walls. "Main power coupling failure," a technician announced urgently. "Switching to backup power." The force field generators made a different sound now, lower and less steady. Several of the warning lights turned red. The Rigel stalker's head snapped up, and it moved to the wall again, but this time with purpose instead of curiosity. "Perhaps we should evacuate the students," Dr. Veltar said, and for the first time his voice sounded concerned. "Agreed," the lead technician replied. "All students, please move toward the exit in an orderly fashion." That was when everything went wrong. The backup power system failed with a sound like breaking glass. The lights went out completely for 3 seconds that felt like hours. When the emergency lighting came on, it was dim and red, making everything look like a scene from a horror movie, and the force fields were gone. The Rigel stalker did not hesitate. The moment the barriers disappeared, it launched itself at the transparent aluminum wall of its container. Its claws struck the material with a sound like metal tearing, and long cracks spread across the surface. The alien students panicked completely. Zixtel made a sound like a fire alarm and tried to climb the wall. Mura became invisible except for a faint outline. Gleep split into a dozen small blobs that started flowing in different directions. Korth pulled his limbs into his body and became a perfect sphere. "Containment breach," automated voices announced from speakers around the room. "Containment breach, all personnel evacuate immediately." The stalker hit the wall again, and this time the transparent aluminum shattered completely. The creature flowed out of its broken container like liquid death, moving faster than Jake thought possible. It landed on the classroom floor in a crouch, head turning rapidly as it took in its new environment. For a moment, everything was perfectly still. The creature and the students looked at each other across the dim red-lit classroom. Jake could hear nothing but the sound of terrified breathing and Zixtel's continuous chittering. Then the stalker's yellow eyes locked onto movement in the back corner. Zixtel was still trying to climb the wall, his armor plates clicking frantically. The sound and motion had attracted the predator's attention like a dinner bell. The creature moved toward Zixtel with deadly purpose, flowing between the desks like water. Its claws made no sound on the floor, and its head never stopped tracking its chosen target. Jake realized that in about 5 seconds, his classmate was going to be killed by a perfect killing machine. Dr. Veltar was shouting into his communication device, trying to reach security. The technicians had already fled. The other students were either frozen in terror or trying to escape through the single exit, which was blocked by their own panicked crowd. Jake looked at the lab stool next to his desk. It was made of strong metal, designed to support the weight of heavy alien students. He picked it up and tested its weight. Not bad, like a chair, but lighter. The Rigel Stalker was 3 meters from Zixtal and closing fast. The Vrex student had given up trying to climb and was now pressed against the wall, making sounds of pure terror. His black eyes were fixed on the approaching predator, and Jake could see that he was too frightened to move. Jake stood up from his seat and walked directly toward the charging creature. "Hey," he said in a normal-speaking voice. The stalker stopped, so suddenly that it almost fell over. Its head whipped around to stare at Jake, confusion replacing hunting focus in its yellow eyes. Here was a prey animal that was not running, not screaming, not showing any of the fear responses that triggered its attack instincts. Jake continued walking toward the creature, holding the lab stool in front of him like a shield. He kept his movements slow and steady, the way his grandfather had taught him to approach dangerous animals. No sudden motions, no fear, just calm confidence. "That's right," Jake said quietly. "Look at me instead." The stalker's head tilted slightly like a confused dog. This was not how prey was supposed to behave. Prey ran, prey screamed. Prey released fear pheromones that made hunting easy and enjoyable. This strange creature was doing none of those things. Jake positioned himself between the stalker and Zixtal, never breaking eye contact with the predator. Around the room, his classmates watched in complete shock as their human friend faced down the galaxy's most feared creature with nothing but a lab stool and an attitude that suggested this was just another Tuesday. Jake kept his eyes locked on the Rigel stalker as he slowly moved backward toward the corner of the room. The creature followed him step by step, its head tilted in confusion. Its yellow eyes never left Jake's face, trying to understand why this prey animal was acting so strangely. "Good boy," Jake said softly, using the same tone he would use with a nervous dog. "Just keep looking at me. That's it." Behind him, he could hear Zixtal making quiet clicking sounds, but the Vrex student was smart enough to stay perfectly still. The other students watched from wherever they had managed to hide, not making a sound. Even their breathing seemed too loud in the silent classroom. The stalker took another step forward, and Jake matched it with a step backward. He was herding the creature away from his classmates and toward the corner where it would have fewer directions to attack from. This was basic survival tactics, something humans learned from millions of years of being hunted by things with bigger teeth. "You're just a big lizard, aren't you?" Jake continued talking in his calm voice, probably hungry and scared. "Don't know where you are or what's happening." The creature's head tilted the other way. Jake's voice seemed to confuse it even more. Most prey animals made high-pitched fear sounds when they were about to be eaten. This one was making low, steady sounds that meant nothing to a predator's instincts. Jake reached the corner and felt the wall against his back. Perfect. Now the stalker could only come at him from 3 directions instead of all around. He held the lab stool in front of him like a shield and planted his feet firmly. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. "When you can't run, you make them come to you on your terms." The Rigel stalker seemed to realize that talking time was over. It lowered its head and shifted its weight to its powerful hind legs. Jake could see the muscles bunching under its dark scales. It was getting ready to jump. "Here we go," Jake muttered. The creature launched itself forward with incredible speed. Jake had expected it to be fast, but seeing it move was like watching lightning. 6 legs pushed off the floor, claws extended, mouth opening to show rows of sharp teeth. But Jake had been watching its eyes, and he saw the attack coming a split second before the stalker moved. He stepped to his left and swung the lab stool like a baseball bat, catching the creature in the side as it flew past him. The impact sent the stalker sliding across the smooth classroom floor and into a row of desks. "Strike one," Jake said. Keeping his voice calm even though his heart was beating fast now, the stalker rolled to its feet immediately. Shaking its head, it looked even more confused than before. Prey animals did not hit back. They certainly did not knock predators across rooms with improvised weapons. This was all wrong according to millions of years of hunting instinct. Jake noticed something important. When the creature had jumped, it had committed completely to the attack. It could not change direction in midair. That was useful information. The stalker circled him now, staying low to the ground. It was being more careful, treating Jake like a real threat instead of easy prey. Its yellow eyes were focused and intelligent, studying him for weaknesses. Jake turned slowly to keep facing. The creature still holding his makeshift weapon ready. He noticed an emergency medical kit mounted on the wall about 6 feet to his right. Inside that kit would be a tranquilizer injector, standard equipment in any classroom that might have dangerous specimens. The problem was getting to it. The stalker was between Jake and the medical kit, and it was not going to just let him walk over there. "Come on then," Jake said, raising the lab stool slightly. "Let's get this over with." The creature must have taken that as a challenge. It came forward again, but this time it was smarter. Instead of one big jump, it made a series of quick movements, darting left and right, trying to confuse Jake about where the real attack would come from. Jake had seen this behavior before, though not from alien predators. Wolves hunted like this, and so did big cats. They would try to get their prey turned around and panicked before making the killing strike, but Jake was not prey. Jake was a human being, and humans had spent millions of years learning how to kill things that wanted to kill them. When the stalker finally committed to its attack, coming straight at Jake's chest, Jake did something that went against every prey animal instinct in the galaxy. Instead of backing away from the claws and teeth, he stepped forward into the attack. The stalker's claws raked across Jake's left arm, tearing through his shirt and leaving long scratches in his skin. But by moving toward the creature instead of away from it, Jake had gotten inside its striking range where the claws could not get a good angle. Jake grabbed the stalker around the neck with his right arm, holding its head away from his body. The creature was strong, much stronger than a human, but it was not built for wrestling. Its 6 legs scrambled for purchase on the smooth floor while Jake held on tight. "Got you," Jake grunted. Feeling the creature's muscles strain against his grip, the stalker thrashed and twisted, trying to break free. Its claws scratched at Jake's arms and chest, leaving more cuts but nothing deep enough to be dangerous. Jake had been hurt worse by his neighbor's cat back home with his left hand. Jake reached for the emergency medical kit on the wall. His arm was bleeding and hurt, but it still worked fine. The kit opened with a simple latch, and inside he found exactly what he was looking for, an emergency tranquilizer injector, loaded with enough sedative to drop a large animal. The stalker seemed to realize what Jake was doing. It fought harder, making sounds Jake had never heard before. They were not roars or growls, but something like a combination of hissing and clicking that probably meant very bad things in the creature's language. "Sorry about this," Jake said. And he meant it. The stalker was just an animal doing what animals do. It was not evil or mean, just hungry and confused and scared. Jake pressed the injector against the creature's neck and activated it. There was a soft hiss as the tranquilizer entered the stalker's bloodstream. The creature's struggles became weaker almost immediately, and within 30 seconds it was unconscious in Jake's arms. Jake lowered the sleeping predator gently to the floor and stepped back. His left arm was bleeding from several claw marks, but nothing that would not heal with some basic first aid. He looked around the classroom at his classmates, who were all staring at him like he had just performed magic. "Is everyone okay?" Jake asked. Nobody answered. They were all too shocked to speak. Zixtel was still pressed against the wall, his black eyes huge with amazement. Mora had become visible again, her crystalline body flashing with colors Jake had never seen before. Gleep had pulled himself back together, but was still bright orange with stress. Dr. Veltar was the first to find his voice. "Mr. Morrison," he said slowly, "that was either the bravest or the most foolish thing I have ever witnessed." Jake shrugged and picked up the emergency first aid kit from the medical station. "My grandfather always said there's not much difference between brave and stupid. The only thing that matters is whether you win or lose." He began cleaning and bandaging his cuts with the same calm efficiency he had shown during the fight. To Jake, this was just basic emergency first aid. The kind of thing every human learned in school. To his alien classmates, watching him treat wounds that would have sent them to the hospital looked like casual indifference to injuries that should have been fatal. Jake finished wrapping the bandage around his arm just as the classroom door burst open. A full security team rushed in wearing heavy armor and carrying weapons that hummed with deadly energy. The team leader stopped so suddenly when he saw the scene that the guards behind him almost crashed into him. "Where is the escaped predator?" the security chief demanded, his weapon raised and ready. Jake pointed to the sleeping Rigel stalker on the floor beside him. "Right there. It's unconscious but not hurt. Should wake up in a few hours with a headache." The security team stared at Jake, then at the creature, then back at Jake. One of the guards lowered his weapon and spoke into his radio. "Command, this is Security Team Alpha. The Rigel stalker has been contained." "Repeat, contained. No casualties reported." "How many personnel were required for containment?" came the voice from the radio. The guard looked at Jake again, who was now sitting casually on a desk and making notes in his tablet about the encounter. Command, it appears one human student handled the situation alone." There was a long pause from the radio. "Please repeat that, Alpha." "One human student subdued the Rigel stalker using non-lethal methods. The creature is sleeping and appears unharmed." Another pause. "We are sending medical teams immediately." Jake looked up from his tablet. "I'm fine, really. Just some scratches. But you might want to check on my classmates. I think some of them are still in shock." That was true. Around the classroom, the alien students were slowly coming out of their hiding places, but they all moved like they were in a dream. Zixtel was still against the wall, clicking softly to himself. Mora was visible but flickering like a broken light. Gleep had turned a color Jake had never seen before, something between purple and gray. Dr. Veltar approached Jake carefully, his 4 eyes examining the human student with new interest. "Mr. Morrison, I must ask, how did you know what to do?" Jake shrugged. "It was just like dealing with any large predator. Stay calm, don't run unless you have somewhere safe to go. Make yourself a harder target than the alternatives, and if you have to fight, fight smart instead of fighting hard." "You have experience with large predators?" the professor asked. "Sure, Earth has lots of them. Bears, big cats, wolves, crocodiles, sharks. My grandfather used to take me camping in places where you had to know how to handle dangerous animals." Korth slowly uncurled from his defensive ball and spoke in his rumbling voice. "You have creatures like the Rigel stalker on your homeworld?" "Not exactly like it," Jake admitted, "but similar. Actually, the stalker was easier to deal with than a grizzly." Bear would have been. Bears are bigger, stronger, and they can climb trees. Plus, they're really hard to tranquilize because they have so much fat and muscle. The silence that followed this statement was complete. Even the security guards stopped what they were doing to stare at Jake. "You were saying," Zixtal clicked, slowly, "that your world has creatures more dangerous than a Rigel stalker?" "Well, yeah. I mean, the stalker is fast and has those claws, but it's not that big. A polar bear can weigh 3 times as much and has claws just as sharp. And don't get me started on hippos. Those things kill more people in Africa than lions and crocodiles combined." Jake paused, noticing that everyone was looking at him like he had just claimed the sky was green. "What?" Dr. Veltar sat down heavily in the nearest chair. "Mr. Morrison, the Rigel stalker is classified as one of the most dangerous non-sentient species in known space. The planet it comes from is considered uninhabitable by every major civilization. We study it as an example of evolution pushed to its absolute limits." "Huh," Jake said. "I guess that explains why everyone was so scared. On Earth, we probably put something like the stalker in a zoo or maybe a wildlife preserve. Kids would love to see it." "Kids?" Mora's musical voice was very high. "You would allow your young to be near such creatures?" "In a safe environment, sure. Education is important. How else would they learn to respect dangerous animals and know how to act around them?" Gleep finally found his voice. though he was still an alarming purple color. Jake, what is the most dangerous animal on Earth? Jake thought about it. That's hard to say. Depends on how you measure dangerous. Mosquitoes kill the most people because they spread diseases. Blue-ringed octopus has venom that can kill you in minutes. Box jellyfish are nearly invisible and deadly. Saltwater crocodiles are perfect ambush predators. Great white sharks rule the oceans. He paused, seeing the horrified expressions around him. But if you mean most dangerous to face in a fight, probably a polar bear or a Cape buffalo. Maybe an elephant if it's angry. Oh, or a cassowary. Those are basically dinosaurs with attitude problems. Dinosaurs? Dr. Veltar asked weakly. Giant predatory reptiles that used to rule Earth. They died out millions of years ago, but we still have some of their descendants. Birds are dinosaurs, technically. And crocodiles have been around since the dinosaur era, basically unchanged, because they're already perfect killing machines. The medical team arrived and immediately started fussing over Jake's injuries. He tried to tell them he was fine, but they insisted on scanning him with various devices and applying some kind of healing gel to his cuts. These lacerations should have required immediate emergency surgery, the lead medic said, examining Jake's arm. How are you still conscious? They're just scratches, Jake protested. I've had worse from playing with my neighbor's cat. Your domestic animals inflict injuries like this? Well, Mr. Whiskers was kind of mean. Most cats are nicer. The security chief was examining the unconscious Rigel stalker. What kind of tranquilizer did you use? Our standard doses barely slow these creatures down. Jake showed him the empty injector, just whatever was in the emergency kit. Standard classroom stuff. This is a light sedative meant for small accidents and anxiety attacks, the chief said, reading the label. It should not have been strong enough to affect a Rigel stalker. Maybe it works differently on creatures from different worlds, Jake suggested. Or maybe the stalker was more tired than it looked. What Jake did not know was that the tranquilizer had worked so well because the Rigel stalker's body chemistry had been altered by stress. The creature had been terrified by Jake's complete lack of fear, confused by prey that fought back effectively, and exhausted by encountering something its instincts could not understand. The mild sedative had simply been the final push into unconsciousness. Dr. Veltar stood up and faced his remaining students. Class is dismissed for today. We will continue our studies when the creature has been returned to secure containment. As the other students gathered their belongings and headed for the door, they kept looking back at Jake with new expressions. The fear was still there, but it was not fear of the Rigel stalker anymore. It was a different kind of fear, mixed with respect and wonder. Zixtel stopped beside Jake's desk. Thank you, he clicked quietly. You saved my life. No problem, Jake replied. That's what classmates do, right? Zixtel's compound eyes studied Jake for a long moment. On my world, we have a saying. It translates roughly to the most dangerous predator is the one that does not look dangerous. I think I understand that saying better now. After everyone had left except the security teams and medical staff, Jake sat alone in the damaged classroom, finishing his notes about the Rigel stalker's behavior. He wanted to make sure he remembered everything for his report. He had no idea that news of what happened was already spreading throughout the station. By tomorrow, every alien student at Galactic University would know that humans came from a world so dangerous that they considered a Rigel stalker to be just another animal, and Jake Morrison, who just wanted to get a good education and make some friends, had accidentally become the most famous and feared student in the galaxy.